Good day, and welcome back to another exciting episode of S.O.S. Soul Filling Our Sisters here on blackdoctor.org. I am your host, Dr. Monique Gary. I am a breast surgical oncologist and medical advisor for Touch for Life, the organization sponsoring this amazing programming. And if you're just joining us for the first time, we are here every fourth Saturday on blackdoctor.org, bringing you news, information, and facts for your life. We're bringing nutrition. We are bringing all things related to saving our souls, ourselves, our sisters, particularly in the setting of breast cancer. So today we have an exciting show for you. We're going to be talking today about how to empower and advocate and how to talk to your providers. So I want you to talk to me. Put some things in the chat. Where are you from? What are your questions that you want us to answer about talking to your doctor? Stay tuned. We got an amazing show for you. Welcome back. This is S.O.S. Soul Filling Our Sisters, brought to you on blackdoctor.org. We want to certainly thank our sponsors, and we want to lead this conversation by introducing you to the organization that is responsible for S.O.S. And so I'm joined by my sister, my friend, my soror, my link sister, all things united in advocacy against breast cancer. Laura Crandon, she is the CEO and founder of Touch for Life. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's so great to be here. It's always a good day when we get to talk to the community about important topics and let people in on the information that we want to make sure that they know.
I love it. And I love you for bringing this programming and not being selfish with the knowledge, because I can't tell you the number of times that I hear people say, I thought I had my questions, I was ready, and then I got in that doctor's office and it all went right out of my head, and I didn't get a chance to ask. I didn't get a chance to get all of my information and my questions answered. So we're going to talk today about it, but I want you to tell us a little bit about Touch for Life and share more about the mission to increase breast cancer awareness in the community.
Yes, thank you so much. So really, Touch for Life is for you. Everybody who's listening to this, who's dialed in, who's online, it's really for you. We created, it's a vision really from God. Like, I'm just grateful that he picked me to do the work. Could be anybody, but he picked me, and that's what I'm doing. It's really to bring you the information. So our mission really is around being committed to breast health equity. What we know is that our Black sisters and brothers are dying from breast cancer at higher rates. And we need to make sure that that stops. And so Touch for Life really does that in three ways. We get out into the community. We come to you. We partner with large organizations that bring a lot of sisters to the table, a lot of brothers to the table, and we bring this information to you in person and virtually. We also get out and do our work talking to providers, talking to researchers and doctors about these inequities and how they can change that. And then lastly, we talk to policymakers, whether those policymakers are state governments, federal governments, or the federal government, or large employer groups. And so we get out this message around the importance specifically around biomarker testing, genetic testing, the things you inherit from your parents, as well as the importance of documenting your family health history. That's what we do.
Wow, that's incredible. And it sounds like a really God sent, but also a mammoth mission. Let me ask you this, when we talk about why this is important for our community, what is it about breast cancer in the Black community that sparks this fire in you? And why should it spark and incite a fire in the hearts and minds of our viewers?
Right. So many may not know my story, that really this started with my own journey when I got this mammogram in 2015 and it said dense breasts. And I thought, cool. But like 50% of us that are women of color, no one referred me to additional screening. No one told me what density really meant, that the radiologist can't see. And so it went, kind of on and on till I fortunately was doing a self-exam and found it myself, something that was unusual on one side and it wasn't on the other. And it turned out to be breast cancer. And then 2 years later, I had this headache I couldn't shake, and it turned out it metastasized to my brain in 2018. So I've had the privilege of being on a clinical trial, of being the beneficiary, really benefiting from this biomarker testing and genetic testing that I'm talking to everyone about, because that helped me get good treatment and good options. And I want everybody to have those options if they have this diagnosis. And really, frankly, yeah, that's where the passion comes from, is that I looked around and said, gosh, I've had all this access and benefit. I can't keep that to myself. That's not how my mama raised me. That's not how my daddy raised me. It's really that I couldn't keep it to myself. I had to go tell it on the mountain and shout to the hills and tell everybody the good news and what they can get, and what they
Awesome.
deserve. Really, that's where it comes from.
Awesome. And I got just one last question for you about that. You said go tell it on the mountaintop. What made blackdoctor.org your mountaintop? What inspired you to partner with this illustrious organization? How does it align with your goals?
Oh my God. Blackdoctor.org is amazing. They're an amazing partner. I really am very blessed to have been introduced to them by my good girlfriend, Ricky Fairley, who's the CEO of Touch, the Black Breast Cancer Alliance. I spoke on a panel that Black Doctor sponsored, Top Blacks in Healthcare. And I met the CEO and I met their team, and they embraced my story, really put their arms around me, and they came together when we wanted to do something with Black Genes Matter and get this word out to the community. It's the right partner because of the reach that they have, the millions of people that they reach every year, the tens of thousands that they reach every week. There's no better partner than blackdoctor.org to get the word out into our community in the way that it's best for us to hear it.
I love that. And if you're just joining us, this is SOS Soul Feeling Our Sisters. And you heard her correctly. She said Black genes matter. That means your genes matter. But do you know why they matter? In the next segment, we're going to talk about it. So stay tuned, put your questions in the chat, and keep it posted here on SOS Soul Feeling Our Sisters. I have the distinct privilege of introducing this here powerhouse, this sister, Dr. Sonia Reed. Dr. Sonia, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
We are so well. If you're just joining us here on SOS, Dr. Sonia Reed is an assistant professor in the Division of Hematology and Oncology at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. And her research there primarily focuses on, there's that word again, health disparities in breast cancer, in young onset breast cancer, hereditary breast cancer. She's going to tell us more about that. And then she's going to tell us, what she's exploring in these genomic differences that contribute to some of the disparity that we're seeing. So, Dr. Sonia, welcome to SOS. Give us a little bit, first of all, tell us your why. I always like to lead with that. How did you do this and why do you do this?
I think my why starts, if I should go back to being originally from Jamaica, I saw where a lot of inequities in care really robbed people of fulfilling their lives. They weren't offered life-changing therapies because they just could not afford it. And I think coming to the United States, where I practice now here in Nashville, see a lot of similarities with what I saw, just growing up in Jamaica. And I think that's really my passion for really kind of trying to get to the root of a lot of these inequities that we don't only see in third world countries, but we see right here in our backyard in the United States.
Wow. I appreciate that so very much because, folks tend to think of it as sometimes a global issue, a third world issue. It's a first world issue. It's Chicago, it's DC, it's Philadelphia, and it's around the world that Black and brown individuals are disproportionately impacted by disease. And there's a reason for that. And it is not always socioeconomic. There's a science to it. And tell us a little bit more about that science. What does genomics even mean and how does it play a role?
Right. So we know that there are differences not only in biology, but also in genomics. We know, for example, Black patients are more likely to get an aggressive subtype of breast cancer called triple negative breast cancer. But even outside of triple negative breast cancer, that I feel folks know about, when we talk about hormone positive or hormone receptor positive breast cancer, which is the most common subtype of breast cancer, we know that if you go down to the tumor, looking at the biology of patients that have HR positive or hormone positive breast cancer, we know that those tumors among Black patients are more likely to have the aggressive types of hormone positive breast cancer when we do genomic testing. For example, one of those subtypes is called basal like subtype, which behaves very similar to the triple negative subtype. And we see that more commonly among Black patients, and perhaps that's leading in part to some of the racial disparities that we see among patients that have even hormone receptor positive breast cancer.
Wow. So we're doing this show to talk about how to have conversations with your doctor, right? And I guess my next question for you is for people who are watching, understanding now that there's a disparity, how does that influence the conversation that they might have with their doctor? Let's say their primary care or their gynecologist or, like what should people do with this information?
I think that's a great question. And I think first I always start with being knowledgeable about what's out there, knowing that there are disparities, knowing that Black patients are 40% more likely to die from breast cancer, yet being less likely to have breast cancer, and having that awareness that we definitely know that whether it's biological factors, as I mentioned, but also inaccess or lack of access of optimal care could be contributing to some of that. So making sure that you are being seen by a doctor every year. I think I always like to start there, that you're going to a doctor before you even get to the age of 40. That way you're able to have routine breast exams by whether that's your gynecologist or your primary care doctor, and then having that doctor take a good family history. And if you don't have a family history, because we know in our community people just don't talk about things, right? Then that also can put you at a high risk for perhaps being getting a risk stratified testing, or earlier testing is what I would say, earlier screening, perhaps if you have dense breast, as Laura mentioned earlier, or have a high family history where you have multiple family members that have had breast cancer. Perhaps you need to be getting screened and tested at an earlier age than the routine age of age 40.
Wow, and I think there's a lot of debate right now regarding whether or not, in particular, Black women be, right, should get mammograms before the age of 40, or whether or not mammograms are the appropriate modality, whether or not it's enough.
Yes.
And what I hear you saying is, and this is something for everybody to share with your family members, your loved ones, with your sister circles, is that knowing that you might be at increased risk means that you need to advocate for yourself with that doctor. So if you have an issue and that doctor says, oh, well, it's probably just dot, 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 your next question should be, how can I be sure? Is there a way
Can
that
I
we
get a
can,
second opinion?
right? And can I get a second opinion? Laura, talk about second opinions. You're going to chime in here, but help people understand. Is it easy to get a second opinion?
Well, first of all, I like that language. That you've just given us a drop. I'm like, that's really good language to use when we're in there. Because sometimes we're intimidated by the doctors. We get in, they got the white coat, they got a lot of education, and like you said, you just go in and you just freeze. But that's really good. How can we be sure? So I'm the queen of like second, third, fourth opinions. For me, that actually helped save my life. I was being followed, my care directed by a community oncologist, and when it metastasized to my brain, but I also was being seen by someone at an academic, like a university medical center. So I always saw two oncologists, and got second opinions. And when I went to my brain, the one oncologist, we said, okay, what's next? And his response was, well, you're a woman of faith. And I was like, mm-hmm, that's it. There's nothing.
What's
Like, I
that
don't think I'd be talking to
supposed to
you.
mean? Wow.
That's it. He had run out of knowledge. And so fortunately, the other physician is the one who put me in the clinical trial. And so, second opinion is really important. And then when it went to my brain, because it is the brain, I got first I got two opinions, then I got two more. I went to like lots of places around the country, just because when you're talking about something, particularly for us, sometimes because we're not studied, because we're not in the clinical trials and the data, you're just looking for like, I was trying to build this consensus.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, it's okay to get a second opinion or third. It's okay. And you should really advocate for your insurance if they push back. They should want you to have a second opinion to make sure that you're getting the right treatment and care. I think it's important for you to get as much information as you can to make a decision because there's only one you, and you've got to make sure that you've got the right care team who's really going to be for you.
I love that. Dr. Reed, let me ask you this because I think patients are afraid to ask for second opinions. What are how do you respond when a patient says, should I get a second opinion?
I encourage it and I help them get one is what I always say. I think you have to be confident in your care. Like that's your life. And I am there to help you champion that effort, whether that's calling that doctor that you're going to or trying to organize, maybe they have a trial at that site that you're going to get that second opinion at that I may not have here. So I think, it's not about the doctor. It's about the patient getting the best care that they can get, whether that takes two or three opinions.
Yeah, that happened
Wow.
to
She
me. I
said it.
had a doctor who, when I wanted to get one of those brain second opinions, and the second opinion had a slightly different approach, but that second opinion had taken into account my particular circumstance. So, like for me, I have a tendency to get what's called necrosis. So, like the tissue that has been treated tends to like die and get inflamed. And that doctor took that into account. And when I went to the other doctor, they were like, we could do that too. And I said, well, but you didn't offer that. And anyway, and then when I set up with the second opinion, she got an attitude. Like it seemed
Mhm.
really ego driven. I actually ended up crying. She made me cry because she made me feel like kind of how dare you thing. And I remember my sister said, wait a minute, like this isn't about her, it's about you,
Yes.
like that.
Yes,
That's right.
absolutely.
And let
I
me
let
just
her
tell
go.
you,
I let her go. Yeah.
right. Hopefully it doesn't take you crying, your doctor causing you to cry to recognize that the relationship might not be a good fit. But it brings up this question, maybe a little round robin of how do you know when a doctor's not the right fit for you? Hopefully before the tears, like what are some of the ways to know that, maybe I need to ask another doctor, I need to get another opinion, or maybe find a new relationship. How do we know? Either
I
of you.
think it, yeah, I think it's hard, but perhaps it actually is it's easier than we think, right? I think we all have our gut instincts, right? We all know when we feel like we're listened to, we feel like our care is in good hands, right? You kind of have that ease and that trust because you have to trust your oncologist. You just have to, right? Like they're recommending toxic therapy a lot, all the times doing big surgeries. You really need to feel that your best interest is at heart at every step of the way. So you really have to have that trust and that confidence in that person. And we know we're all humans. Not everybody's going to be everybody's cup of tea, right? So you kind of have to have that connection, and it may not be all mushy, but just that sense of ease that you feel comfortable with your doctor, that you can share sensitive things if they come up, that you can share worries and concerns and your deep seated issues that you may be having with a therapy that's recommended. And I think sometimes we all know when that fit is not there.
Yeah, I would say too. That's right. It's the feeling I got. Yeah, tears.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Terrible. Um, or like that doctor who kind of ran out of options for me. Hopefully, you don't experience that. No one here on the on this broadcast experiences those things. But I just want to free you. It's okay to let them go, like, and find somebody else. Because at the end of the day, there's only one of you, and your family and your friends and the people who love you want you to be around, and you got to be part of the care team that cares about you and puts you at the center of that. And it's okay.
I'll say this, there's a couple of ways that you can test the waters to see if your doctor is listening and if they're willing to partner with you, right? Before you get to the point of terminating relationship, although you never have to go through these steps in order to decide that maybe it's not a good fit for you. But sometimes mirroring back what you heard and asking that doctor, did I hear you? Did I understand that you said XYZ? Right? Because it could be a microaggression, it could be a misunderstanding. It could be that they're saying you should do one, two, and three, and you heard three, four, and five. Right? So sometimes mirroring back and just saying, did I understand that correctly? Another question: why do you say that, or what's the guideline? Is there a standard? Is there something you can share with me that helps me understand how this care is relevant to me? And the great equalizing question that I tell all my patients to ask when they're afraid to go see the next doctors beyond the surgeon is, what would you do if I were your loved one? Your
Yeah.
mother, your sister, your auntie, your partner, right? It reminds people of the humanity. It reminds doctors that there's a person attached to that chart and to that tumor. And if you go through those steps and that doctor doesn't have any answers, or they have their hand on a doorknob and they're walking out and don't have time for questions, it's not the right relationship for you. Dr. Reed, I'm going to bring you back to talk a little bit about a very sensitive subject, talking about young onset and hereditary breast cancer. But I want us to be able to talk a little bit more about genetics. So, in the next segment, we're going to be talking about genetics. I want you to put your questions in the chat. If you're just joining us, you've been missing out on a really good conversation. This is Soul Filling Our Sisters SOS on blackdoctor.org. Stay tuned. All right, we got our team back in action. We are joined again by Grace Ann Fasaya, a genetic counselor at the National Cancer Institute Center for Cancer Research. How you doing? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good, especially because I'm here talking with you all. And thank you, Dr. Mo, for this opportunity and for blackdoctors.org. I'm very excited to be here.
We're thrilled to have you because what you do is so special and important to the community. If you all are just watching, follow her on Twitter, on X at Graceful DNA, because she's dropping the gems, the information that you need to know. So I'm going to start with my first question that I ask everybody. What's your why? Why did you become a genetic counselor?
Right. I love that question. And I'm going to get to it in 1 second. But because I'm a federal employee, I just need to say that any views or opinions that I express are my own and not that of the National Cancer Institute or its umbrella organization, which is the National Institutes of Health. Okay. So, with that business aside, for me, I've always been fascinated with my family. I just have this very cool, hip family. So, I'm kind of obsessed with them. And with that comes wanting to have a deeper understanding of not only the cultural and the fun aspects of my family, but what is it about, you know, those conditions and diseases that are running in our families? What can we learn better about ourselves so that we can help the future generation? And so, like many genetic counselors, I stumbled upon learning about the profession when I was studying in college in my genetics course. There was a page about genetic counseling in there, and I was just fascinated by it. And so that's why I went into the field. But in general, as far as it comes to cancer, breast cancer is a passion of mine, like increasing knowledge and understanding of the disparities in the Black community, and especially how genetics and genetic testing can help reduce some of those disparities. So that's kind of like in a nutshell my passion for genetics, genetic counseling, and also breast cancer, increasing awareness about breast cancer.
I love that. I heard you say a page. There was a page on genetic counseling. And I think you were right. I recall being in medical school and not really understanding or fully understanding the importance of genetic counseling and how it impacted care, outcomes, futures, etc. And I think there's a lot more that we can learn about that. And if you're watching and you have young people, encourage them to consider careers in genetic counseling. I want to ask you a little bit
Yeah.
more about. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, that's a great segue to talk because I know there was discussion about, feeling comfortable with your healthcare provider. And I'm sure you know, but just making sure the audience knows as well that, a lot of people, they feel more comfortable when they have a provider that looks like them, their physician, their, primary care, their oncologist if they have cancer, their cardiologist if they have a health issue, on down to their nurses and other health care professionals, including genetic counselors. And so, because of that, and because we know that there's better outcomes, patients ask more questions, the sessions are longer, patients are more compliant with recommendations. There's so many benefits to having, that match concordance on race and other aspects of cultural identity. That's so important in building that comfort and talking to your provider. And so, because of that, I started an organization called Golden, which stands for the Genetics Opportunities, Learning, Development, and Empowerment Network. And it's focused on increasing awareness about genetic counseling so people just aren't stumbling on it in class. So, me and my other co founder, her name is Barbara Harrison, we help to organize talks at black universities. Excuse me, historically Black colleges and universities, HBCUs. And then also, once people are excited and interested in the field, we mentor them into the profession because it's very competitive to get in. And so, as far as like you mentioned earlier, being a Black genetic counselor, it's like being a unicorn, which in one way that's kind of
Hmm.
cool, but in another way, that's not acceptable. We need to increase the number of Black genetic counselors because we know it's so important to have people in healthcare spaces who are representative of the patient population.
Absolutely. Representation matters in our healthcare experience. When I look at when and how Black folks will consider life saving treatments like chemotherapy, when that doctor is a Black or Brown physician, when we sit down at eye level, when we spend just a little bit more time, right? We're not just checking the box and say, well, we offer chemo and the patient refused, but we're able to get into the granular details of why we have certain cultural beliefs, what we're afraid of, what is important to know about these therapies, about our family history, about, our health literacy, right? That can save lives. And so it is so important. As an HBCU graduate, I wish I had had you in my FAMU days, right? That would have been amazing and empowering. And I love that you are paying it forward to the next generation because, tell us about why genetic counseling matters for breast health particularly. I'm a breast surgeon, so that's my jam right there. But why is it important for people to know even before a cancer happens?
Right, right. So when it comes to genetic counseling, the process involves helping people understand if their disease, and we're talking about breast cancer today, if their breast cancer has any features that may suggest that there's a hereditary component. So that's what the genetic counseling process is focused on, looking at the clinical features of someone's cancer. For instance, triple negative breast cancer. Those are markers that can be looked at, and it also is a kind of a sign that the cancer may be harder to treat, the cancer may be more aggressive. And we know that Black women who develop breast cancer are more likely to have triple negative breast cancer. So when it comes to breast health, we also know that women with triple negative breast cancer are more likely to have a genetic factor involved. And so that's why it's so important that genetic testing is offered, the referral is made, the testing is actually performed on women who have triple negative breast cancer, women of all black backgrounds, and especially Black women. We also know that if you're diagnosed young with cancer, with breast cancer, that's a feature of hereditary factors. So, what do we mean by young? Because young, it's kind of on a continuum now, right? Because people are living longer and looking great at all ages. But when it comes to breast cancer, diagnosis under the age of 50 is considered young for a breast cancer diagnosis because typically it's diagnosed at age 60 or older. The average age is around 60. So if a woman's getting breast cancer in her 30s or in her 40s, and we know Black women are 2 times more likely to get breast cancer under the age of 35. And so because of that, again, when it comes to breast health, that's another key risk factor for recommending genetic testing because it can have impact on treatment, different types of medications that can be offered, such as PARP inhibitors. If someone has a mutation in BRCA1 and 2, those are the gene. I think Angelina Jolie was mentioned before. She has
Mhm.
BRCA1. But I don't know if you guys know this and people on the call, but Beyonce's father carries a BRCA2 mutation. That didn't get as much press. Um, Apparently, he said there's online information that Beyonce and Solange have tested negative. They don't have the genetic factor. Um, but in general, those are some of the features that make us suspicious of hereditary factors. And those are also some of the features that are more common in Black women. And so Black women are just as likely to have a genetic factor involved with their breast cancer as women of other groups. So we want to get rid of some of those stereotypes and myths that it's just women who have means or white women like Angelina Jolie who have these mutations in breast cancer genes. It's women of all ethnic groups, including Black women and men.
Wow. Yeah, that was going to be my question for you because I got two questions in the chat. And the first one is, well, does genetic testing hurt? And the second question is, it only matters what's on your mother's side, right?
Right. No, I hear that all the time. So first, it doesn't hurt. It involves providing a blood sample. I know some people don't like needles, including myself, but there's other options. There's saliva, spitting in a tube. That doesn't hurt. Most people can handle that. And then there's also buccal swab, where you take a brush and you brush your cheek to get cheek cells. So that's the part. Like, it doesn't hurt. There's implications. So that's why you should talk to a genetic counselor or to your healthcare provider about what would it mean for you or for your relatives if you have a genetic factor involved. And then, yes, you can inherit genetic risk for breast cancer from your father. So many women over the years, I've been doing this for over 20 years now, will tell me they never reported their father's side of the family when it came to breast cancer. They didn't tell them that their father's sister had breast cancer or their father's mother, or even that maybe their father had breast cancer, because we know men can get breast cancer. But absolutely, you can inherit a genetic risk factor from your father. And certain cancers, such as pancreatic cancer, prostate cancer, cancers that happen in men and cancers that happen in men and women, can be connected to these hereditary factors, these gene mutations.
So important. Hashtag check your chest because male breast cancer is starting to slightly increase, and Black men have a 55% higher mortality compared to white men when they do get diagnosed with breast cancer. So the disparities are real. And I hear you saying that it's important to have that conversation with your family. It's important to consider genetic testing. And my question for both of you as we get ready to wrap up this segment is, what advice do you have for people who are, one, looking for a counselor, and two, trying to figure out how to bring this up to their doctors if their doctors haven't brought it up to them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely would say to talk to your doctor and say, I would like a referral to genetic counseling. Just full stop. That's the sentence. And see how the conversation goes. Does it open up a conversation about your family history and your risk factors, whether you've been diagnosed with breast cancer, going through the risk and the benefits? Does it lead to a referral? If it doesn't, if you get shut down, then I would say the next step is to make sure to advocate for yourself and take matters into your own hands. There's actually a website, the National Society of Genetic Counselors website has a Find a Genetic Counselor icon that you can click on. It's on the first page, where you can find a genetic counselor that's local to you. But some people live in areas where there's sort of like a genetic counselor drought. There's not that many around them. But there's also services that provide genetic counseling remotely, virtually, telehealth. And so if you call a genetic counselor's office, then often they'll screen and ask you questions to determine if an appointment is appropriate for you.
Yeah, so I'd just like to say that we're going to wrap up this segment. At Touch for Life, on our blackgenesmatter.info site, we have a document that says, what to ask your doctor. We also have partnered with the Vassar Center which is out of the University of Pennsylvania, and they have a telehealth component. So on our websites, we have links out that you can go to them and have a referral to and have a conversation, and they provide telehealth on a national basis. So I want to make sure that folks know that we've got resources there.
That's new information for me too. So I'm gonna take note of that link.
Great.
And if all of this information is new to you, we want you to click share. Right there at the little bottom right hand of the screen, there's a little arrow that says share. Share this on your Facebook page. Share it on your YouTube. Share it in your cell phones and your text messages with people in your family and in your circle who need to know about genetic testing, because what's in our genes matters. And the secret to our own survival is, guess what? It's in our genes. So we want you to stay tuned. It's Soul Filling Our Sisters. And you know what time it is, because Laura loves to give away stuff. We got another giveaway. There it is. You can see it right there. And we want you to click the QR code. Pull out your cell phone, open up the camera, click the QR code, and join the Soul Filling Our Sisters or the SOS community, because one, it might save a life. Two, might save your own. Three, you're going to get amazing content. You're going to get recipes. You're going to get calendar reminders, conversations, everything that helps you to fill your cup first so that you can continue to fill the cup of others. So click the QR code for a giveaway, join our community, and stay in the know with Touch for Life. Now, I get to bring back all of my girls, my sisters. This is like living single or something. I love it, because we're busting it up. And if you just join us, this is SOS. You need to like replay this and rewatch it, because it's vital information for you and your family. But I'm joined again by Laura Crandon with Touch for Life, Dr. Sonia Reed with Vanderbilt University, Grace Anfasaye at the National Cancer Institute, a genetic counselor, and we're talking about advocating for yourself and having conversations with your doctor. We talked a little bit about genetics. We talked about disparities. I want to focus in on young women really quickly as we talk about advocacy, right? And why it matters in young Black women. Can you all shed some light? I'll start with you, Dr. Reed. We'll go to Grace Ann. We'll go to Laura. Talk a little bit about why it matters for young people.
Absolutely. So we know that Black females are actually more likely to develop young onset breast cancer, right? So that's before the age of 40, when screening is not actually mandated as yet. So that's crucial information to really allow to empower younger women to make sure that they're not just dismissing a breast mass as a cyst, or I'm too young to get breast cancer. I think I've heard it all. Or I thought it was a clogged duct when they were breastfeeding. No, it can be breast cancer. And that's for all females, right? But especially we know that we see higher rates of breast cancer in younger Black females. So I think that point I do want to emphasize. We also know that once diagnosed at a young age, we have to make sure that we're testing patients, right? So genetic testing is critical, not only for patients where we're able now to offer them risk reduction surgeries, but for sharing that information with their family members to prevent cancers. I know we have given stories earlier in this conversation, but now we know, I'm a medical oncologist, and now we know that there are drugs that we can give that particularly targets patients that have a BRCA1 and 2 mutation, and that indication is now even expanding. Now we've seen clinical trials, we're testing some of these same drugs to patients that have a PALB2 mutation, for example, right? So if we don't know that information, then we're not able to offer these advancements in therapy. So super critical to make sure that we're offering genetic testing to all our patients, but also trying to kind of leverage that, because we have not been doing a good job in our marginalized communities.
Preach about that, because I heard from SABCS that there's a breast cancer vaccine on the horizon, right? And you know what? They're looking at it in people who have hereditary mutations. If you don't know what's in your family, you won't know if you have a mutation. And if you don't know if you have a mutation, you may not know if you're eligible for important studies like this. But I want to give everybody else a chance to answer that question. What's going on in young Black women? What's happening with our little sisters?
Right. So I think this is so important that we're discussing it, because often people think of breast cancer as a disease of aging, that people later in life get it, that, grandma may get it, but sometimes the younger people in the family are at risk too. And we know that young women can develop breast cancer. Oftentimes, I've heard stories over the years of people having symptoms of all types of cancers, including breast cancer, and they get ignored. And we know just in general, Black women, talk about some of the issues they have going to the doctor and feeling like they're not being taken seriously, they're not feeling heard. And I've heard those type of stories, especially when it comes to being young and having symptoms of cancer. Mammograms, they recommend starting at 40. Some insurance companies may wait until 50 based on if you don't have a family history. So there are some insurance barriers too, coupled with the person being young and they're coming in with a lump or feeling like they have nipple discharge. They are noticing symptoms, but they may feel like their symptoms aren't being followed up on. And so that's why it becomes so important to advocate for yourself, take a relative with you, a second, set of ears to listen and to push and to help advocate for you and to speak up and just keep pushing until you get the follow-up care that you need if you have symptoms or if you have a family history that warrants that you have a risk assessment to see if you're at a higher than average risk for breast cancer. There is NCI where I work has a website where they host the GALE model. That's a breast cancer risk assessment tool. Typically, it's something that providers will enter information about person's age, if they have a family member with cancer, how old were they when they had a child or if they've had a child, those type of factors, and it'll give a risk number. And if a woman has a 20% risk or higher, then she is eligible for breast MRIs in addition to mammograms, and maybe even at a younger age. If there is breast cancer in your family, it's someone who was 40, for instance. Let's say mom had breast cancer at 40, then we recommend that her close relatives, her children, her sisters, they start screening at age 30, 10 years younger than the earliest diagnosis in the family. So those are just some important things to keep in mind for young women who are advocating for themselves.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think it's important to use phrases like "this isn't normal for me." This is an abnormal experience for me. I It's not like my body to experience pain or this discharge or this mass that I feel is not normal for me, and I would like to get it investigated, things like that. um,
I love that, Laura. That to me is so powerful, but it also assumes that you know yourself. And I think that's where we got to get to in our communities, knowing you're normal. I feel like we taught the breast exam all wrong. I tell my patients this all the time. I said, we taught it wrong. We told people to feel for lumps. Yeah, but your breast consistency might normally be lumpy. And so the answer and the strategy is to feel for normal. Learn where the lumps are, learn what they feel like and when they
mhm.
change. We talk about breast self awareness over the just the self breast exam. Like you should know them on the 1st, the 15th, before your cycle, after your cycle, in menopause, which we never talk about breast changes in menopause. But when I was 20 something, I don't think I was as outspoken. I didn't get this outspoken until in my 40s, where I felt like I could really truly say something and be heard. And I hear you all giving some really good tips because when you're that age and you don't really know your body, how do you have the conversation with your doctor? What's some more good tips? Because Laura, you gave a good one. You said this isn't normal for me, but give us some more tips on how to communicate effectively with doctors when you don't really feel at ease.
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, sometimes it's just writing down your questions on your cell phone, paper if you're old school like me, or cell phone. We do have a guide too that's got places to write your questions, but just and you're saying, I have some questions, or because they typically go through the protocol standard questions, but you say, there's something that has been on my mind. I went to this SOS webinar, and I wanted to see, am I a candidate for genetic testing? Is
Mm.
my candidate for biomarker testing? I don't know the science behind it, but it seems like it might be something that would be a fit for me, given I'm a Black woman. And they're just at least bringing up the conversation, because what we're finding is, in many cases, the physician isn't bringing that up proactively, but when prompted by the patient, it's like, oh yeah, we have a couple of examples of that. And that's what we're trying to do, is make sure that it's, so I think asking questions in that way, it's not confrontational, it's really accessible, and you're being curious and tapping into all that knowledge that is behind that white coat.
I love that. I think my number one piece of advice for people is, what should I look for at home? What should I be watching for? When do I call you back? When should I come back? When can we follow up on this? Any question along those lines that suggests that there's going to be another conversation about this thing helps to make sure you don't fall through the cracks. Because if your doctor says, "Oh, this seems like it's normal," and there was no imaging, how can we be sure? Could we maybe get some imaging? And then what do I look out for at home? That way you feel empowered when you leave there. And, I want to get to the resources. You all have been dropping these pearls and these gems all throughout. I heard you say NCIs. I heard you say Gale model. I know we've put up the link for Black Genes Matter. Dr. Sonia, can you tell us, are there resources at Vanderbilt as well that can help women to feel empowered and to learn more about these topics?
Absolutely. We have quite a few resources already, but we're even in the process of building out a navigation model, as well as patient education for our Black patients, essentially starting there. That way, Black patients in the community feel empowered to, when it comes, especially around the clinical trial conversation, because we know historically we've just not been doing a good job when it comes to clinical trial enrollment among our Black patients. So that's an initiative that we're really trying to double down on, and some of that will be also shared, and maybe I can send the link for some of those videos and resources that we will have maybe in another couple weeks now. So we're excited about that initiative here.
That's
Great. Thank you.
powerful. And then Grace Ann, at NCI, are there some resources and things that people can look to help them guide the conversations?
Sure, yes. NCI has a ton of resources. We have something similar to Black Genes Matter, like a questions to ask your doctor. You don't know what to ask unless you know what to ask, and I
Yeah.
think we help to guide patients with those resources, which are on NCI hosted websites. And then also, NCI has the Cancer Information Service. So if you've been diagnosed with cancer and there's just a laundry list of like medical lingo you're not familiar with, or you don't understand this pathology of your cancer, you can call someone up and you can ask them about it. And they can send you all type of resources. With NCI has so many resources, but people don't know about them, like fact sheets, and websites and other materials. So NCI definitely provides that type of education for the community.
And one of our clinical champions on each market that we go and have Black Genes Matter, we've identified a clinical champion who is typically a geneticist, but also an oncologist. And for the DC area, we've got Dr. Sheila Rajagopal, who is at NCI.
She
And
is.
she has
Sheila's
agreed to she is awesome. She's my sister from another mister.
awesome.
And she
Oh,
has
Dr.
agreed to
Sheila.
take the community's questions. You've got questions. And what I can tell you is that I've seen firsthand, in 24 hours, she responds to your question. If you've got a question about I saw multiple myeloma. I saw the ATM mutation. People ask all kinds of questions, and she comes back with a very thoughtful and very quick response. And so that's the type of expertise that we want to and have committed to bring to you, the community, that you have access to these badass experts who are on this call, this platform right now, Dr. Mo, Dr. Sonia, Grace Ann, and also those clinical champions like Dr. Roger Gopal. That's what we have committed to give to you. That's what you deserve.
Wow. And so think on this, right? Your life matters. Your genes, your black genes matters. Your health matters. And as we get ready to close, we see your questions and comments in the chat. We will definitely get to those. We'll make sure they get to the right clinicians. But we want to wrap up and encourage you to join us again next month for SOS. But we're going to get ready to close. And I want everybody to think about the take home message here as we close. Stay tuned. SOS, Soul Filling Our Sisters. Welcome back to SOS, Soul Filling Our Sisters. This is it. If you didn't catch the show, you got to go back, replay it, share it, watch it, transcribe it, send it to a friend, bat signal, home and pigeon, because we're giving all the pearls and the gems on how to talk to your doctor. We have been talking about advocacy, advocating for yourself, genetics, why your genes matter. Dr. Reed, tell us the 30-second wrap up. What do you want people to know and share? If they say, I saw this program on Saturday, what do you want them to say?
That they matter, you matter. And I want everyone to remember that when they go in their doctor's office, that in that room, that's your moment. And if there are a million questions that are bubbling up, you need them answered. And if you don't feel like you're getting them answered, then you need to speak up and be your best advocate.
Thank you for that. Laura, give us the last bit of a take home. Tell us a little bit about Behave as well, and then take us out.
We'll do exactly what Dr. Reed said. I couldn't say it better. We talk about advocacy. Touch for Life has launched Behave, Breast Health Advocate Voices for Equity, where we're training the community, you, on how to tell your story, the legislative process, how to talk to your legislators as well. Mm-hmm. That launches in earnest in February. We're just wrapping up the cohort for our launch, and we're so excited about being able to have you be empowered, not only to talk to your provider, but also to be able to talk to your elected officials so that they support policies that support you.
Wow.
And Black Genes Matter will be coming to a city near you pretty soon.
That's it. We're on tour. If you don't know, now you know. We are coming. We having our Black Jeans parties. We want you to wear your Black jeans. We want you to know your Black jeans. How about that? Have those conversations with your family. Share this information. Don't keep it to yourself, because it's just too good and it's just too vital. You have been watching SOS, Soul Filling Our Sisters. We want to thank our sponsors for their generous time and support and resources for us to bring this programming to you. We want to thank Dr. Sonia Reed. We want to thank Grace Ann Fasaye, and of course, we want to thank Laura Crandon, Touch for Life, the innovator, right? The CEO and the founder who brought us this programming. And you can catch us here every fourth Saturday on blackdoctor.org, filling your cup with information on nutrition, on sexual health, on cancer awareness, on everything that involves our community and filling our sisters so we can save ourselves, because that's what it's going to take. You're watching SOS here on blackdoctor.org. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.